had been like a second youth. He had gone abroad as a middle-aged widower, still grieving for his lost wife, and also as a semi-retired politician who had to push himself to savor new experiences. But the magic of France had quickly enveloped him, making years that were his 40s seem like an enchanted span from, say, 25 to 30. At the time, it had not mattered so very much that his flirtations had been platonic, though it took an effort to keep from seeing this as a series of defeats. His justified confidence in his writing skills blinded him from realizing that his love letters were ponderous and even tiresome, possibly spoiling the opportunities that might have been. But nonetheless, there had been moments of titillation in the relationships, and his mind returned to these euphorically. Now, as he disembarked in Norfolk, he was startled to learn that newspaper accounts had already told the public that he was to be Secretary of State. Everyone he met on the dock bowed and called him Mr. Secretary. President Washington was so anxious to have him accept the job that he had sent several letters. One had been handed to him before he left the ship. One, dated October 13, caught up with Jefferson when he reached the inland town of Eppington, Virginia, on December 11. 4 days later, as he continued toward his Monticello home, a copy dated November 30, 1789, reached him in the town of Chesterfield. Jefferson quickly responded, but with an unusual delaying tactic. He wrote that he was truly flattered and honored by your nomination of me to the very dignified office of Secretary of State. This was followed by a dozen lines that stressed how poorly qualified he was, and the strangely predictive words that he foresaw the possibility that this may end disagreeably for me. But he added, "It is not for an individual to choose his post, and my inclination must be no obstacle." By thus leaving the decision in Washington's hands, Jefferson caused the president to write another letter in January that would reach him at home early in February 1790. Meanwhile, another bit of pressure had been exerted when Jefferson's friend, James Madison, came to welcome him home, but also to press Washington's case and urge Jefferson to accept, which he finally did on February 14. Seldom has anyone been pressed so hard to accept a highly desirable political office. And yet, Jefferson's foreboding was meaningful. The appointment would prove painful, both for him and for Washington. To begin with, the president's offer had come as a mixed joy and sorrow to Jefferson. To be Secretary of State, and clearly the senior among Washington's advisers, was a high honor, holding the unspoken possibility that it could lead to the presidential office in 4 or 8 or 12 years. What a triumphant slap at those who persisted in claiming that his role as Virginia's governor had ended shamefully in fleeing from British raiders. If General Washington showed his approval, who could say a contrary word? Who else knew as much about the art of retreating? But was this step back to politics the life he wanted? His inner voice probably cried no many times, but just as often responded to a new and contrary ambition that said not yes, but perhaps. Why this conflict? Jefferson had dreamed of returning to his beloved Monticello, improving the farms around it to strengthen his troublesome finances, altering his house according to the gracious neoclassical examples he had grown to love in Europe, living quietly with the books and friends that pleased him most. After 5 years of virtual freedom from supervision in France and the surrounding countries he had visited with such an avid appetite for learning and beauty, Washington's letter seemed more like a call to harsh duty than an invitation. It was a reminder that he would be expected to reside wherever the government might choose to set the still undetermined capital, to attend meetings whenever someone else called them, and to think more about the advice he would owe to the president than about the much larger world he had seen, whose main cities exceeded 500,000 in population. But he must have been conflicted, for this newer thought, taking his mind in the opposite direction, had to be considered: the presidency. He did not want it for personal aggrandizement, but for a chance to lead the nation toward the glowing future he had in mind and away from what he saw as a looming...
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.